Welcome everyone to our today's webinar, I-Square webinar in cooperation with SuperTools. It is the second webinar of the series Agile Insight Tools. And today's topic is testing online ads in the natural advertising environment. I'm glad to have Florian Paslik here as a true expert in this field, who conducted a lot of international studies around that. And before we start off and I'm introducing him to you, let me quickly brief you on the background of this webinar series. It's a webinar series for Agile Insight Tools, and it was started because one initiative of I-Square is to produce and launch a platform which provides Agile Insight Tools, tools that are agile, not only agile to use, but really implies latest technology. So basically makes it possible to apply a cutting edge, but at the same time being agile. And in this line of products is also SuperTools, which is a pricing testing platform, which is not the focus today. But if you're interested, we can talk about afterwards about that. But that's basically where I'm come from. I'm the co-founder of SuperTools, and I'm the host for today. I'm very glad to welcome you, Florian, again. For everyone who do not know I-Square, it's a psychology-oriented international active market research institute with 74 employees working on 3 continents, and is really leading with a range of implicit research tools. And SuperTools, again, is a agile pricing testing platform established last year, which runs implicit price research combined with causal machine learning. So Florian is an associate research director of I-Square right now in Sao Paulo
Exactly.
to better serve US customers in the same time zone. Welcome, Florian.
Hi, good morning from here. Good afternoon to the European people watching. Very glad to be here. Thanks also for the invite, Frank. Very glad to join. And let me quickly check whether everything works with the presentation. It does. Perfect. Yeah, good afternoon. I'm very happy to be here to talk about our InContext testing tools, to briefly introduce that to everybody, why we're using that, what we can do with it. But I think more importantly, and that's also probably of most interest to everybody, we will present a case study, which we have used the InContext testing for, to better understand how advertising works on TikTok, on Instagram, on different social media platforms, and what we can actually learn from that. But yeah, they say a picture or maybe even a video speaks better than 1,000 words. So I will quickly start off with a video to show you what our InContext testing really means. What we mean by that is to have a research approach on various platforms. These are only examples. You can see Snapchat from right to left, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. And what we do with this InContext testing approach is we have panelists, we have participants that are being invited to our studies. And with this approach, we are able to invite them to the platform they maybe actively use the most, that is of most interest to them. Also, obviously, this is heavily related to the targeting criteria you might have for the research questions you try to address. So let's say I'm heavily using YouTube at home, which I actually like to do. I will be then directed to YouTube, which we're seeing here. I will be sent to the replication we as I-Square have on our server, I will be then opening YouTube, and I can in no way discern that from the, let's say, real YouTube anymore. It does have the look and feel of the real YouTube, with the only exception that we can actually control what is happening on this version of YouTube, which means obviously we can embed specific ads in specific places that you as a client or you as a fellow colleague would like to understand better, would show to your clients how they work. Yeah, it's basically meant to have participants and panelists serve in an environment that is as natural and authentic as possible, while still being able to show the creative, the campaign you want to be testing. We're seeing how this looks here from the website point of view. One of the advantages we have with this is that, first of all, we can control everything, obviously. So we can, for example, show different creatives in the places they would be shown naturally, but also we can target the content better, right? Let's say we want to have a younger audience. Obviously, we would probably be testing more on Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, possibly. And we can also show and control the contents we are showing in there. So that means it's specified to the country we would like to be testing in. It could also be more catered to user interests. As a broad example, maybe show more football and soccer videos. And I think and I hope this is a good first introduction for everybody to understand what we really mean by in context testing. Um, the the Let me go to the next slide. The main advantage, obviously, for that being that we can create an authentic environment that really elicits the natural behavior of the participants. I think we all know that different platforms ask for different kind of approaches. Obviously, a campaign you as a client or you as an advertiser might actually be trying to run on the TV versus Facebook or Instagram need to be very different. They are having different logics. And with this approach, we are able to show how the approaches you chose for your communication, for your campaign, actually fit these environments and whether they're able to stand out truly as we're hoping they're doing, or whether we can see that there's something that maybe still needs to be improved on that side. Another question that sometimes comes up is why do we actually like to do that? Why are we using in context testing? It's also nicer for the users and the participants, the panelists, actually. We all know the past about these kind of dry, maybe even kind of boring surveys, showing pictures of stimuli, showing videos as they are, just isolated, which isn't fun for everybody, and it's not really giving the insights we want to. So with our in-context approach, we can make it more interactive, more fun, actually, to take part for the panelists, for the surveyists. And also, I already said that we can touch more based on their interests, the demographic target better towards that. And in the end, have true insights, reliable data that really depend on the authentic interaction on the platform. Maybe just to show you one example of that in detail, these are Instagram story ads. So I will be taking part in a survey. Let's say I'm doing a new campaign for my shoes I want to communicate. You would then have a survey, maybe do demographic questions, a screener first. And once participants are eligible to take part, we will guide them to our website that is showing them the Instagram environment you're seeing on the left. So participants can browse on Instagram. They can go through either the feed or the story section. And in the second picture, you're seeing how this story section looks, just as it would naturally. It's full screen. It's a full screen video with sound. The only difference being that we can insert ads where we want to. For example, in this use case, it would be on the second place, right between the first and the second story the participant would be seeing. And we can also do some nice tricks and play around with that. We can add call to action features, such as swiping up to that. We can embed more details, and which I think is also a good advantage of that, we have the data. We see how long ads are being played for, what participants are looking at. and also clicks, interactions, as we are hosting this all on our servers, meaning we have all the data for that. So much for the in-context approach. I hope this was making it as clear as possible. If not, obviously,
maybe a question from my side.
sure.
Did I got that right? So basically, you do a survey, and in this survey, you got a response to a replicated social website, but not a true one, but it's a simulated one showing ads. And after a while, they are basically led back to the survey. And at this survey, you do some questions, asking questions regarding the ads they have seen. Is that right?
Perfect. Exactly, Frank. Very good point. I didn't touch too much on that. Obviously, after that, we can redirect them to our survey again and then have awareness questions, impact questions to see how it really, played with the user and what the effects are. Very good question. Yeah. I think we also have a Q&A.
Yes. And everyone who has questions
possibility.
can put it in the Q&A chat. So yeah, we will discuss them.
We will be happy to address them once I'm done with this case study. Exactly. So much for the in-context testing approach and a broad introduction to that. What we actually wanted to show you today, and what I would like to tell you more about, is one of the use cases we actually had for that, and a case study we have used the in-context approach for. We call it Fast, Faster TikTok. We call it also our social media case. We wanted to understand better what the experience really is on TikTok. How does it work? How do users interact with it? And specifically also, how do advertisements work on this platform? Obviously, TikTok isn't that new anymore, but it's still on the news heavily. There's some US states that already banned it. A lot of traction and a lot of locomotion about that. I think, including me, I'm not the youngest anymore, so I still try to understand sometimes what the appeal of it is to younger audiences. But in the last 2 years, I think everybody of us at least got to know a bit of how it works and how TikTok looks and why it's so interesting, especially with younger audiences. And what we want to do with this case study is to shed a bit light on possible differences between, for example, Instagram and TikTok as a platform. We used the in-context testing approach for this one. You can see the actual live advertisements we tested on the left and to the right. To the left is how it looked for Instagram using our approach. To the right is how it looked on TikTok. We invited participants to take part in this study with a cover story. So obviously we didn't say that this would be about advertisements, to get something like a low involvement and as natural as possible reception situation. And with the in-context testing, we used the live advertising simulation. And we tested these ads you've been seeing for Sunbun and Samsung. The platforms we have been using were Instagram and TikTok. I already said that. For TikTok, we use the Insta Stories format. So not the feed, that is maybe the more traditional environment, but we use the Stories feature to the top of it with the little icons. Why? Because we think it's the more realistic, maybe even fairer comparison to do that. Because it's a very similar format. Both of them show the videos in full screen format. Both features have sound and both heavily rely on moving images. So by using the Instagram story approach, it's the fairest and the most equal probably comparison between Instagram and TikTok, as it were. Before I dive into the results and what we've actually seen with this case study, maybe just some details on the study itself and what we did, what we wanted to try to show. We have done this study in June and July last year in the US with more than 1,200 participants. They were somewhat a younger audience, which is also, I think, representative of the majority of the user bases of TikTok and Instagram, so 16 to 39 years old. We tested different advertisements from Samsung and also from Sunbun, a sun lotion product. And we also had different types of ads. We had some that pay more into branding. We had some that pay more into performance. And we will also talk about that later on. And we tested the exact same ads on Instagram and TikTok to make a very fair comparison. And obviously, what we wanted to find out is how does the usage behavior differ between TikTok and Instagram? How does this have an effect on the brand perception? And also, we had participants do a shopping task on Amazon in the end to really show what the effect on purchase intent was in the end. And as a first question, also to get into the questionnaire easier for the participants, we broadly asked them, what do you use these platforms for actually? What is your main aim of activity on these platforms? And then you can see different parts of activities you can do, entertainment, learn more about influences and brands, personal contacts, other reasons. And in the purple color, you're seeing Instagram. In the black color, you're seeing TikTok. And what we're seeing is that most of them, or both of them, are actually used for the most part to kill time, to pass time, to be entertained, watch videos. This is also the largest mention for TikTok. And then it gets less for TikTok. TikTok isn't used that much for influences, for brands or personal contacts. It's basically a video platform. It's basically an entertainment platform. Whereas Instagram is also used more for influencers and brands to learn more about people I actually follow, personal contacts, also messaging. Obviously, that's a part of Instagram. So this is also already one very huge difference between the two. Instagram also relies on information, context, communication, whereas TikTok is heavily based on entertainment, watching videos, and just enjoying that, killing time with that. And we always call that now attention, please, because we're diving into the real data and we're going to see the comparison between TikTok and Instagram, as it were. The first metric we wanted to show you is what we call playback duration. So as I said earlier, we record the metrics and the user behavior with this approach on each and every one of the advertisements we control. So we can see, for example, with this metric, how long the ads on these platforms have actually been playing for. These are always average numbers. So what you're seeing, the 5.9 seconds for TikTok is the average of all ad contexts. And the same for Instagram, obviously. This is also the average across all ad contexts we had in our study. And one thing that's very interesting is that we're seeing longer playback durations on Instagram versus TikTok. It's about 1.5 seconds on average that it's longer on TikTok, which for us as psychologists, also in the market research business, is always already quite a bit of difference, actually. Obviously, this means that the ad was being played for this amount. It lets us and it makes us able to infer that attention is being paid for about longer times on Instagram compared to TikTok. However, what is a really interesting difference is that this attention that's being spent towards the ads is not necessarily linear. What you're seeing now is the basic awareness parameters. I think we all know the free ad recall. So we asked about which ads did you see, which brands do you remember, and also recognition. So do you remember this ad being seen in the last couple of minutes? And what we're seeing is that while Instagram on the left, the ads there were being played for 1.5 seconds longer on average, so they receive more attention from the users. We're seeing that on TikTok, the awareness is actually higher, although participants looked at them for shorter times. For the free ad recall, the difference is there. It's not that huge, but it's even bigger for recognition, which leads us to the fact that apparently attention is not linear. And also, while TikTok receives a bit shorter attention, this doesn't necessarily translate into less awareness for the advertisers and the communication that takes place there. We also brought a short background slide with YouTube added into that as well. Just to show you that attention doesn't necessarily need to be linear, and attention doesn't equal attention. What you're seeing here is the playback duration we've been seeing earlier for YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok, and then we're seeing that it's consecutively getting longer. YouTube as a video platform receives the longest attention. Instagram is already lower, and TikTok receives only 5.9 seconds on average. However, the recognition for these platforms is getting higher. For YouTube, it's a bit on the lower side. For TikTok, it's the highest. So we're seeing a very contraintuitive and maybe contradictory result, which is very interesting. What we brought with us today is also a heat map to the right. Just an example, this is how we record attention using eye tracking measurements. And what we're seeing here, what we wanted to show you is that this heat map actually shows how scattered and how divided attention really is on YouTube. We're seeing that with the red dots, this is the areas that receive most attention, that they're really scattered. It can be on the video itself, it can already be on the skip button, it can be in the comments, it can be on the video information details. So we're seeing that while ads on YouTube might be running for longer times, this doesn't necessarily mean that they're receiving more attention and also more awareness and impact on the users that are seeing them. So much for the first broad overview and the results. We try to make a quick and nice summary of what we've learned so far for Instagram and TikTok. Instagram is a bit more the expected. I know which kind of content I will be seeing because it's the friends I'm following, the influencers I'm following, and advertisers and senders are also immediately being recognized, of course, because we're seeing that there's suggested posts. I just skipped the slide. I didn't want that actually. Let me go back. Yep, there I am. Because they are being showed as suggested posts, so advertising is seen easily, which also leads to a less intense engagement with advertising on that matter. Then for TikTok, this is more of a surprise. Obviously, this is also in large part due to the algorithm, the way TikTok plays out. It's a sequence of videos that is rather random and unknown. So I also need some time to decode what I'm seeing. There's always this element of surprise, which leads me, the user, to a first intense examination of the creatives I'm being shown. So it's not that expected, and there's always this element of surprise that I'm seeing. Maybe before I'm getting over to the next part, are there any urgent questions already? Something that's unclear? Frank, maybe are you seeing anything in the Q&A part?
No questions so far.
Okay, then we'll take that for the end.
Yeah.
No worries. I briefly touched it in the beginning. We also looked at different forms of ads. We call them branding and performance ads. What we mean by that is we used, for both of the advertisers, Sunbum and Samsung, we use different kinds of ads and stories. For the branding ads, these were ads that pay more into the brand image. The brand wasn't immediately recognizable. It was a nice story that is being told, but the brand or the product weren't in the center of attention in the beginning. And it's something that everybody can relate to. It wasn't a really product-focused ad. It was more like a universal story, universal theme. Whereas the performance ads, as we called them, those were about purchase intent, activation. They showed the brand and the product very clear. It's about introducing the product. And the storyline also heavily relies on the product itself, as well as the product feature that are being shown. What was really interesting for us also to see, talking about the playback duration, so the same metric that we saw in the beginning, is that branding ads are being played for longer times on average. And here we're seeing quite a dramatic increase. It's 2.3 seconds on average that branding ads are being played for longer than the performance ads. And why is that? From our point of view as psychologists, but also market researchers, it's quite evident that those branding ads, They tell a nice story. It's not in your face. This is the brand, this is the product. So they capture my attention more, but also I need to decode them at first. Ah, this is an ad, actually. Maybe I thought it was a TikTok or an Instagram video with a nice story. So it takes longer for me to decode it. I'm looking at it for a longer time versus the performance ads on the other side. They are being played for an average for 5.4 seconds because it's more obvious that it's an ad. It shows the product quite early. It shows the brand, so I know, ah, yes, this is an ad. And if I'm not interested, I tend to skip earlier. How does this translate into the awareness parameters we've also been seeing earlier? So here, what you're seeing is the percentages. That's the free ad recall. Again, for those ads we tested on TikTok and Instagram. And what you're seeing is that branding ads receive less free ad recall. They're not being remembered that easily, which also makes sense, right? The product and brand are clearly in focus. With the performance ads, they're being shown earlier. The brand is often shown multiple times, which leads to participants actually remembering that better and actually having an easier time to also remember the product and the brand they've been shown earlier. However, which is really interesting is that for recognition, it's the contrary. So once we ask participants, hey, do you remember seeing this specific ad while you were surfing on TikTok and Instagram? It's easier for them to remember that they've been seeing this ad for sure because the branding ads are being looked at for longer times. The playback duration was a lot higher, remember? Also, the stories in these branding ads are more intense, they are more special, it makes it more unique, more details. So the creative itself is easier to recognize versus the performance ad that is more a traditional advertising in the sense that it's about brands, products, and these kind of information. We also asked about the brand image parameters in the course of our study. And we see that the branding ads are actually able to do their job. This is, I think, a very clear result, also something that we would have expected. The ads that were designed to pay dividends to the branding, to create a more positive brand impact in terms of being modern, in terms of being a trustful brand, a prestigious brand, also a brand that's personally relevant to me. We're seeing that the branding ads, that's the light blue bar, they're showing a lot more positive impact on these brand image statements compared to the performance ad that are more about selling the product, giving product information. One thing we are also able to do as iSquare, as a company, as with this InContext platform, is to actually guide participants to another part in the survey, which we call the shopping experience. We call that add to cart effect, to actually show, okay, the ad you've been just watching, what effect does it really have at the end of the funnel? Does it increase my purchase intent? Does it increase my tendency towards buying the product? And what we do is we can also include this into the survey. For example, after the exposure on Instagram or TikTok or any other platform, we then lead participants to an online shop. In this case, it was Amazon. And then we guide them to a search result page for the relevant category. In this example, Sunbun, obviously it was sun lotions. Participants are free to click on whatever they want, to look at whatever product that's interesting to them, look at the product detail page, and then in the end, we ask participants to decide on one product they can buy, actually. And what did we see in relation to this study? We're seeing that the performance ads are actually doing their job as well. While the branding ads were more able to pay dividends to the brand image statements, to have a positive effect on that, we're seeing that in the shopping task, in this add to cart task, we're calling it, performance ads are eliciting more purchases. We're seeing that of all the participants we asked, 14% of these participants actually bought, of course, only virtually, the product that was being advertised versus the ones that were seeing the branding ad. of those, only 9% actually bought the specific sunburn voucher in the end. So we're seeing that with the higher interest in the shopping funnel, performance ads are ultimately able to do what they wanted to do, namely leading to more purchases through the users themselves. And as a last part of today's webinar and today's case study on TikTok versus Instagram, we also wanted to see how these differences between branding and performance ads, how they actually plan out and play out between the two platforms themselves. So again, we have tested the same ads, namely the same branding ads on TikTok and the same branding and performance ads on Instagram. And what we're seeing here are the different performances, the different values for these on our parameters we tested. We're seeing in the first slide, this is recognition. So we've been asking participants, do you remember seeing this exact advertisement while you were shopping on TikTok, on Instagram? And what we're seeing, the only real difference here is for the branding ads on TikTok. Why are we seeing that the branding ads on TikTok are so successful at being able to elicit a higher recognition, a higher awareness, a higher, familiarity with the user? We believe because it's the perfect match, actually. TikTok is really built as a platform for nice stories, as a platform for nice videos, something where I can watch, a place where I can watch nice videos. So these rather, let's call them unintrusive ads, the branding ads that don't really just show the product and the brand, but a nice story, a funny story, maybe even. These are the ones that work best in terms of recognition and awareness on TikTok. We're seeing for Instagram to the left that there's not really a difference in recognition between performance and branding spots. Also, the performance ad on TikTok doesn't fare that well in comparison to the branding ads, which leads us to the conclusion that for TikTok, for Instagram, ads are already learned. They're expected, so it can be both branding and performance, but for TikTok, definitely branding ads are the way to go because they just fit the platform better and they are being remembered a lot better, as we can see here. We also asked the brand statements we've been seeing earlier in the slide, namely trust in the brand, but also emotionality. Am I touched by the story? Same picture here. We're seeing a bit more differences in the values themselves, but again, the highest overall values are being achieved by the branding ad on TikTok. So this really leads us to believe that there's a very high fit, a very good fit between TikTok as a platform and the approach of branding ads, the approach of storytelling, not really shoving the product and brand into the face of the participants, but rather telling a nice story, because that's what TikTok really is, the platform for nice, for funny, for also touching videos and to be entertained by them. Maybe as a quick summary of these differences between TikTok and Instagram, we try to look for a word that's maybe the best dubbing for these two platforms. TikTok, we call that openness. The user scenario is that I want to see what TikTok has in place, has in store for me today. I don't really know what I will be showing, what I will be shown today on TikTok, but also that's the fun of it, right? It's a surprise that counts, and advertising can still be effective here, but definitely more so with funny stories, with settings that fit the scenario, with communications that are not too product, too brand driven. Only product information leads more to disappointment. It's a bit more, not the way users expect to be interacted with on these platforms. The summary for TikTok clearly was that branding ads really fit better into this world. For Instagram, to the left, we try to call that orientation. I kind of know what I will be seeing on Instagram because obviously I actively follow my peer group, my friends, but also influencers, maybe meme pages. So I kind of know what I will be expecting, but I want to know what's new with them, what's new with my friends. Obviously, it's also entertainment, but here it's already learned. Advertising is a clear part of this platform. Product information and news are more accepted along the stories, along the funny videos, the glamour. Influencers do it too, and also sponsored posts are. I think they've been around for longer on Instagram, and they are also clearly highlighted, so they are more expected on this platform. Already, which also leads to the fact that Instagram can be a better platform for performance-driven ads, for product information, because it's more effective here and it's more accepted. That was already the case study I wanted to show you today. I hope it was interesting to everybody. Maybe just a quick summary of the key takeaways we basically wanted to give you today. In the first part, we saw that attention really isn't necessarily linear. TikTok is a very quick, a very rapid platform, but despite that, it can still be a very effective, a very efficient advertising channel. We also saw that there are very clear differences between branding spots and spots in campaigns that focus more on performance, but they both have their individual strengths on these platforms. However, we would advocate for TikTok being a clear branding channel, meaning the advertising needs to be a bit more funny, a nice storylining, and a bit more appealing. We call it the beauty of advertising. For Instagram, though, both strategies can work actually. It can be the branding spot, but also the performance communication that's more oriented and focused on sales. That's it from my side. Thanks for having me, Frank. And then let's see whether we have any questions from the audience today.
Yeah, so again, please use the Q&A for questions. I'm seeing 3 of them. One is the question, what's the sample size needed to test an ad?
Very good question. We're flexible in that, seeing that we control everything. Also, the survey is done by us. We always advocate for a sample size for a minimum of 100 per test cell, meaning the test cell can be, of course, each and every creative that you're seeing. But depending on how many test cells you want, how many different creatives are being tested, this can be higher too. Also 200, 250 we're sometimes doing, but 100 would be the minimum, kind of the gold standard also for you to have reliable data and to see that the sample is big enough to have trustworthy data. This also always depends on, of course, whether you want to do any cuts in the end, demographic comparisons or whatever, but 100 most of the times should be the minimum.
Because there's another questions around the latter point. How do you control for different audiences when comparing the different platforms? I mean, I guess it's a point you see different whatever brand performance, but maybe it's just due to a certain different audience it uses. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, it's a very good question, kind of tricky, right? Because obviously what we want to enable our clients, also advertisers, with is to make them able to understand the effects the platform has. Obviously, YouTube works very differently to Instagram, to Facebook, to classic TV. But also very likely this effect each platform has is due to the audience it has, right? I'm kind of, I think, in the middle, but I always know that my younger cousins, they make fun of Facebook for being an older people platform already, whereas TikTok is likely for the younger audiences. However, in order to be in control of that, and in order to minimize the effects the audience has, we're able to control for everything, right? Since we're doing the survey, since we actively redirect participants to the platform. So if you, as an advertiser, as a brand, for example, say that you want to have maybe a younger group, but also an older group on Instagram to show whether this might also be a way to communicate with your older participants, with your older customers, we can do both. We can have, for example, one test group that is the younger people on Instagram versus another test group that's the older audience on Instagram. Since we can control who's seeing what, we can always control for age, gender, and who is seeing which kind of platform. But yeah, it's a very interesting and tricky question because I think platform and audience are kind of related, right?
Exactly. Another question. The tool is used for testing ads, but which KPIs do I use to judge which ads, if an ad performs great and which is better?
Good question as well. I think we have a very interactive audience with good questions today. Obviously, the parameters we've been showing today, also that I've been showing in my case study today, they're just a selection, right? We can ask whatever we want. We can ask about brand awareness, recall. We can ask image statements. We can ask about purchase consideration, activation. Also, we saw that since we do the recordings of the metrics for these ads, we have something like playback duration, view time, how long are they being viewed for. I think it always depends on your use case as an advertiser. For example, in the performance ads case, I would rather look into sales numbers, how many participants are actually saying that they are now more considering the brand and considering purchasing the product versus for example, a brand communication, a branding communication, we would also be looking more into the brand statements, right? And then, for example, if I'm a new brand, a new company on the market, I would first of all probably like to drive my awareness on the market, right? I want people to know my name, to hear of me. So I would probably look more into awareness. Do people remember this ad? Do people remember my name as a brand? And also, of course, for all of these types of questions I might be having as a brand, something like playback duration or view time. Is my ad really interesting? Does it capture attention, or do people swipe it right away because it seems not that interesting? So there's a lot of questions that can be asked with a lot of important parameters, but it always depends on what you really want to find out about this exact campaign you'll be running, I guess.
So two more questions coming up. One is, what would it be an eye tracking tool which you used in this case study? Probably he's asking, is the eye tracking tool used right in this InContext study, and which tool is it?
So maybe the first question, yes, obviously we can combine the InContext approach with each and every other methodology and capability we have. We can do eye tracking on these ads. We can also do, for example, for a TV ad, we can embed these into a TV environment and see whether people zap away, whether they change channels. We can also do emotion measurement. So this is all basically different elements we can combine. For this specific case study, we didn't maybe Frank, can you go back to I think it was slide number 10 or 11 where we saw the heat map? It was quite in the beginning. It was a nice heat map
Yeah,
to
this one, right?
Exactly, that's the slide. Thank you very much. This is obviously from an eye tracking study, right? For this case study, so the data you've been seeing, we didn't do eye tracking because there was just too many participants, 1,200. So we used the playback duration, the time the ad was visible, as an inference for attention and visual attention. But obviously, we can combine measuring attention with eye tracking with this InContext approach. And then what we would be having next to the parameters you're seeing here, awareness, playback duration, we will be also having something like that, the heat maps. And we could see, okay, what really captures attention? How do people look at the ad? Where do they look at, where not? So two-sided answer for this case study, we didn't use it, but for other studies we're running, we can definitely do it.
Cool. So last question I'm seeing, that's probably for me. It's can you measure the impact on the willingness to pay? And I think that's what I can answer, because you, Florian, mentioned you can combine that tool with other tools, right? And the Supra tools tool, it's a tool which within 2-3 minutes it measures the price demand curve of a product, and we did that several times. For instance, for people who tried a product versus those who didn't try, or people who see an ad and people who didn't see an ad, and there we can combine and basically compare how much did the demand increases, and depending on how it increases, it changes the optimal price point. So, and if you really measure how the optimal price point changes, and the sales will change, you can calculate the ROI of an ad. Not only by more sales, but also by basically increasing pricing power. Yeah. So answer is yes. The tool is regularly combined with other tools such as super tools. So I think we have all questions answers. I mean, we are up with the time.
Perfect, right in time. But we will have a recording of the session too, right? For everybody who wants to maybe rewatch the session or who joined it later.
Exactly. So we will distribute this recording to everyone. And if everyone has questions, reach out to Florian. Here's his email, paslik@isquare.com.
Exactly.
If we have questions regarding Super Tools, shoot me an email, frank@super.tools. So hope you liked it, and watch out for this next webinar in our series, which is end of July. Be curious and enjoy your day. Thanks, Florian, for joining.
Thanks for having me, Frank. Have a nice weekend, everybody. Thanks for being here.
Bye then.
Bye.
Bye-bye.